I'm in here. Do you just turn my video on? Okay. Oh, I'm trying this. Okay. Oh, any better, but there we go. I wish I could have one of those pictures, like the image is not available, like you see in yearbooks when you didn't show up for picture day. Huh? They always had like the thing, little picture that said image is not available or some shit like that.
Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the
I
Commission
have a tally
on
going, by the way,
Presidential Debate.
to count how many times he says
Has
fake
designed
news.
the format,
Oh, we
six
should have made
roughly
bingo cards
15-minute
again.
I got
segments
one
with 2-minute
for
answers
myself,
from each
but
candidate to the first question, then open
if anyone
discussion
joins,
for
they
the
can
rest of each segment.
play along.
Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission.
If I remember
or the
correctly,
two
there was
candidates.
like a couple Chris Wallace
This debate is
questions
being
from the
conducted under
2016
health
debates
and
I didn't
safety
like.
protocols designed by
Yeah.
the Cleveland Clinic, which is
They were
serving
not
as the
policy
health
focused
security
at all.
advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed
Are we
the
live?
candidates
Will you tell me when we're
will
live?
not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers,
Are we loud?
no boos or other
Huh?
interruptions, so
Nothing.
we, and more importantly you,
It's fine.
can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
So try to do some fact checking if you can.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump,
look
you
so
nominated
squished.
Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend.
Yeah, it's not
to
perfect.
Succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the
Here we
court.
go.
Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president
Right out of the
and
gates with the
Republicans
Supreme
to
Court.
jam through an
Yeah, I
indictment
figured that
and
was gonna
what you
happen.
call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make? And
It was
your
either that or
opponent
they bring the
wrong?
tax
And
return stuff front
where
and
do you
center.
think
Yeah,
Justice Barrett would take
they should have.
President Trump?
I wonder
your
if
first
Biden
segment,
will
go
work it
first.
in.
2 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Uh,
I will tell you.
I
very
hope he
simply, we
does.
won the election.
Considering he released, what,
Elections have
19 years of
consequences.
his tax
We have
returns
the
right
Senate,
before the
Yeah.
we
debate?
have the White House.
Exactly.
and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way. Good
Trump
in
doesn't
every
know what
way.
all is,
In fact,
but
some of
I
her
guess we knew
biggest
that.
endorsers
Imagine
are very
him
liberal
talking
people
for only 2
from
minutes.
Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic.
Do you want to make a bet on how many times they're going to have to tell him to shut up?
Election itself. I have a lot of time after the election.
I think it'll be like half the time.
So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good.
I'm
as
betting at
anybody
least
that
10
has served on
times
the
we
court.
hear,
We really feel that.
Mr. President, your time is
Professor
up.
Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right
But you
to do
won
it.
it 3 years ago, 4
President
years
Trump,
ago.
Thank you. Same question to you.
And also
Vice
lost the
President
popular
Biden.
vote.
You have 2 minutes.
Exactly.
First of all, thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care
He's
Act.
going the reasonable
He's
route.
been running on that. He ran on that, and he's been governing on that.
Let's see how that
He's in the
works.
Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing.
To start
I'm opposed to the
reasonable
justice. She
and
seems like a very
professional, but I think he'll
but
dig
she's written before
his
she was
claws
the
in
judge,
if
which
it
is her
comes
right,
down to it.
that she thinks that the
I hope he
Affordable Care Act
does.
is not constitutional.
I
The
mean,
other
he
thing
knows
that's
Trump will
important,
just
and
lie.
it was
Like, I
struck
know he
down,
knows he's
what
Yeah.
going to mention the
women's rights are
executive order he
fundamentally
signed
changed.
about pre.
Once again,
Exactly.
a woman could
I
be
did
held
see
accountable
Biden's
because
Twitter
she has a
trolling today, and
pre-existing
that was
condition of
on
pregnancy.
point.
They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care
I know
Act.
half the Trump family
And
was
there's
tweeting
100 million
about,
people who have
you know,
pre-existing conditions,
poll
and
watchers
they'll
not
be
being
taken
allowed
away as
in
well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are
into
going to love.
polling sites.
And so it's
Their
just
poll
not
watchers are
appropriate
just
to do
MAGA
this
people with,
before
you know.
this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or
I
Republican,
mean, there's laws against
then it goes
intimidating
forward. If
voters. I
not,
don't know
we
why
should
they
wait
think
until
that's going to
February.
work.
There aren't 100 million
If they just
people
call
with
them poll
pre-existing
watchers enough,
conditions.
they're
As
hoping
far as the say is
it'll get
concerned,
looked
people
over.
already had their say. They
Guess so, but I mean, if it walks like a
Justice
duck, walks like a
Ginsburg
duck,
said
and
very
talks like a
powerfully,
duck, and looks like a duck,
at some
then
point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected
You
for
know.
3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
It's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people.
Is he really going to talk about the
100
difference
million
between the
people
number
is
3 and
totally
4
wrong. I
for
don't know
2
where you got
minutes?
that number. The bigger
Seems like
problem
it.
that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number
White.
one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
Not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your
That
party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is
What he
that
said.
it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 20.
I'm not sure, but
200 million-
Trump's not
200,000
used to
people that have died
a
on his
political
watch.
party being more than one
How many
person.
of those? And so they have
'Cause,
survived?
like,
exactly.
Well, there's 7
There's
million
people with
that
different
died
ideas
from COVID.
in a
What
range,
does
in
it
a
mean
spectrum.
for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing conditions?
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
this.
if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
Record. I mean,
Which
let's
was
see. The
heavily
most
infected. You would've
recent
been
poll
much
came
later,
from
Joe.
Hill Harris X
President.
survey.
We're talking about 2 million people.
You're not
Let's
President
see,
as
a few months
moderator.
ago.
We're gonna
And the
talk about
biggest,
COVID in
most
the next
popular
segment, but
option was
go ahead.
32%
finish.
of people
The point
that
is that the president
were in
also
favor
is
of a
opposed
universal
to
government
Roe v. Wade.
operated system
That's on the
for
ballot as
healthcare
well, in the
that would
court-
allow
in the
people to
court.
buy private
And so that's
supplemental
also at stake
insurance.
right now.
So,
And so the
I
election
mean,
is
Trump's
all
idea
over
that
the
people
ballot.
don't
Why
want
is it on the ballot?
what Biden is
Because-
Why
offering
is it on the
is
ballot? It's not on the
ridiculous.
ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Yeah, Trump's so
you don't
disconnected.
know
He doesn't know what
View on
people
Roe
want.
v.
He just
Wade.
knows
I
what.
don't view.
Well, all
He
right.
knows what he
All
wants.
right, let's
Yeah,
talk- I
and
would-
he thinks he
And
knows
what
what
his-
We got lots
some
to
of his
unpack here,
base
gentlemen.
wants.
We
Yeah.
got a lot of time. so-
Exactly.
On health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
all right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case.
He called him
a week
Donald. That was
after
awesome.
The election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they
If-
want to
if
give
I-
good
if I-
health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid
an
of
opp-
the
I'm gonna-
individual.
Even
I'm
let
gonna
Willis
give you an
talk.
opportunity.
I got rid of the
Wallace
individual mandate,
talk.
which was a
That is
big
not-
jump.
I'm waiting for him to
That
pull
is
out
absolutely a
his
big
magic
thing. That was
sheet.
the
It's like,
worst
this is
part
my
of
healthcare plan right
Obamacare.
here.
Chris,
You're
that
debating
was
Right.
the worst
not
part of
me.
Obama.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I
President,
got rid of it.
I'd like you
and we
to-
will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely
You, Wallace is
symbolic
going to have to tell him to
executive
shut
order
up. We're what,
protect
5
people
minutes into
with
it?
pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate.
I just hope he
So my
keeps
question,
doing it.
sir, is, what is
Me
your
too.
healthcare plan?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay.
Ooh.
I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices.
calling
I'm
me out
going
on my
with
lies?
favored
How dare
nations,
you.
Which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost. I'm getting it for
$2
so
little,
cheap.
what is it,
It's like
prescription
water,
card
you
that
wanna
he's
know the
sending
truth. So cheap.
senior
Take a look at
citizens
all of the drugs that
in
we're
favor
doing,
of pretty much
prescription
voting for
prices.
him
We're gonna
does not
allow
a health
governors
plan
now to
make.
go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big.
you'll
This
be
is
happy.
big stuff.
But he
Sir,
signed a letter.
You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to
Makes
ask
it
the
official.
Vice President, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will
Wallace.
the question. It will
Not what your
end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid.
South Carolina.
Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far
did-
left, on the manifesto.
Will
we
you-
called
Wait,
it.
I thought-
And that gives you
I thought
socialized
Kamala
medicine.
was further
Look,
left than
I'm
Bernie
not gonna
Sanders.
Listen to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole.
Where they want to go with Kamala. It's like she's the biggest liberal they've ever seen, or they're screaming about her being a cop.
Yeah.
For Tuesday, you got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal.
I mean,
I got
okay.
very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight
Trump
I'm
has
gonna make sure because
said that
here's deal.
his tax returns were required
fact
or
is that
acquired
everything he's
illegally,
saying so far
and
is
that they're
simply a lie.
fake.
I'm not
So
here to
like,
call out
it
his
can't be
lies.
both.
Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agreed.
wanna
He all
make sure-
contradicts himself.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick.
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead.
wrong
Oh, and then
guy
he
at the
does-
wrong night at the
Yes!
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
let
Now
him-
you're
Listen.
disavowing it.
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders.
Tongue out.
on the plan.
Ew.
Folks,
Absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you
to,
have
and
any
under that
idea
thing
what
that's
this clown's
socialized, they
doing?
call it
Mr.
Medicare.
do you
Mr.
have any
President.
do?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because
Oh my goodness.
Because he, in
That was
fact,
good.
already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession.
Did he call
Number one.
On-
Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and
He
say
keeps
that's what he wants to
the
do.
plan.
Take it away.
No, I want to give
Number
them better
three.
health care.
Well,
I mean, Trump was touting this health care plan that was supposed to replace Obamacare literally in his campaigning days, the first round.
done a single
And here we are, 4 years into it, we're almost done, and he has not produced a thing.
Let the president, go ahead, sir.
Yep. How many times did he say repeal and replace and, you know,
Exactly.
replacements
I mean,
what?
that was an
Took away
entire
the individual
campaign
mandate,
platform.
Guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual.
And just like
mandate.
his wall, he's produced
This is the
nothing.
way it
There's
is.
nothing.
And that destroyed. That they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well, Or badly. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And
known
I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive, premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly.
Oh, this debate's not going to end at 10:30 or whenever it's supposed to.
Good.
There's no way.
Plan for healthcare.
We'll be here all night.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected.
Trump did like that no power quip.
Everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan.
Of course we
The
do.
fact is, this
Then
guy
where's it
doesn't know
at?
What he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President.
Biden is
If
going
Senate
for the
Republicans-
throat.
We were talking originally about the Supreme Court here. If Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know.
He doesn't
you're
wanna-
a
Trump is
senator.
5 years
I'm
old.
not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
That
We
is
have
I'm not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years, you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come
Really
back
even hear
to
what they're
anything
saying.
approaching
Because Trump won't shut up.
normal. My question for both of you.
Yeah,
is based
he
on what you
he's
have
being
said
difficulted.
and
Get
done
difficult.
so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
his 2
March
minutes.
exactly
it's so
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be
Test one,
providing all
two.
the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their
Talk
businesses
for me when you
open,
can, Andrea.
open schools. It costs a lot of money. you should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor.
Better?
Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
there was no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy that's being shut down. The reason it's shut down is because.
Can you hear me?
Look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an.
He's going to call him out on that swine flu thing. I'm tired of hearing that.
Right?
How many of you were in a situation?
I think everyone was tired of hearing about the swine flu. Like,
yeah, what was it? 14 people, I think.
Well,
Isn't that what just said?
Far more people.
It was 14,000, but that was over the entire thing until it was like contained and then dealt with.
Oh yeah,
200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, "If we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask." And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't trust
terrifying.
Johnson, Pfizer.
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me.
You don't trust these giant corporations? Well, I would say no. Most people don't.
Two of the questions I'm going to ask.
Negative.
Focusing on the future first, President Trump. You have
That's legitimate because truth be to God, I don't think I will take a vaccine that's backed by Trump.
Head of the Centers for Disease Control.
If Fauci comes out and says it's fine, and then he doesn't seem like
he's being coerced,
yeah,
or under duress,
and mistaken.
Exactly.
Your two words, but.
I don't know.
Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed,
I just don't think I trust
exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and
I also think he's just sweet talking, and it's still even the untested version or whatever is a ways out.
Yeah,
it's a very political thing.
Not till at least after November.
Pfizer,
I mean, he can't make a vaccine go faster.
Moderna,
despite the fact that he wants to spew lie after lie about when it's going to be done and
the left or
so on and so forth. I mean, the fact of the business is he can't make it happen.
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just
like he said, it's a possibility.
Also, I'm tired of Scott Atlas, his
before
neuroradiologist.
I know.
He seems like a skeevy businessman.
Like the military.
That's because he is.
They're all set up. We have our military that.
And did you read not too long ago where Dr. Burks is like, I don't know that she's necessarily contemplating stepping down, but she's really upset with the Scott Atlas ordeal.
I haven't seen a lot of Burks lately.
Well, yeah,
Or
and that's why,
Here's the
because
deal.
she wouldn't,
This man
you
is
know,
talking about
I guess to where
vaccine.
she got to where
Every
even she
serious-
could only put up with
every
so much of
serious
that,
company
you
is
know,
talking about
ridiculous
maybe having
Trump
the
narrative,
vaccine
like
done by the
shoving
end of
light
the
bulb
year, but the
bulbs
distribution
up
of
your
that
butt and
vaccine
injecting
might occur
bleach.
sometime
So,
beginning or the middle of next year.
I mean,
Get
they
it
pretty well
out
put her on the
if we
back
get the
burner. I mean,
vaccine.
Atlas was
And
pretty
pray
much
God
Burks's
we will.
replacement.
Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up, though.
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
wanna
than
pick
What
up
month
on this
was it
question,
when
though.
he
You
brought
say
the My
public
Pillow guy
can
on
trust the scientists,
to the
but they
his?
can't trust President Trump. In
I
fact,
don't
you said that
remember.
I knew we were
Your running
screwed
mate,
at that
Senator Harris, goes
point.
further,
Yeah.
saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
That had to
Given
be
the
like
fact that
March.
polls already show
I think it
that
was back
people
towards
are
the
concerned
beginning.
about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it. Are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying you
no,
can't trust the scientists.
No. You can't trust the scientists. He
was
didn't
March.
say that. You can't
She,
trust
she
the
said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be
Yes.
suppressed.
What did he just ask,
That's what he's going to
Biden?
try to do. But there's millions of scientists.
He asked.
there's thousands of
I think
scientists out
Harris
there,
said something
like here at this
about
great
like
hospital, that don't
the
work for
scientists
him.
and stuff are
Their
gonna be
job doesn't
muzzled
depend
and
on him.
like
That's
stuff like
not-
that.
they're
But-
the people.
Oh.
they're-
Yeah,
and
but the
by
question
way,
was like
the
weird. It was
Doctors that
like
are in
By the
charge,
way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment
it's only
what he's
natural
telling
to be
you
like
in light
worried
of
that they're being
all the lies
coerced.
he's told you
Exactly.
about the whole issue relating to COVID. He still hasn't even
It's like
acknowledged
the same reason
that
why we
he
don't let
knew
people
this was
that are
happening, knew
$400
how
million
big it was
in
gonna
debt
be
being president
back in
or be
February, and he
anything
didn't even
in
tell
government.
you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of
There,
people
that's
die,
the exact
and
question,
a
which
lot
is
more gonna die
not
unless
fair.
He gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever
Oh
use
my
that word.
goodness.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you
man.
know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if
We'll
you
see
would have
who's
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
Oh,
If you would
good
have had
grief.
the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
see,
and
he's
it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast. I look
Okay.
forward to talking
When
about
it comes to how the virus has been
At least Chris
handled
Wallace
so
shut
far,
Trump up by saying,
two
"That's
of
the
you have
next
taken
question.
very
Just
different
shut up."
approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because
I
he
read
didn't
from
have a
the
plan.
Washington
If I were
Post
running, I
that
know
Hillary
what
Clinton
the plan
actually
is. You've
gave
got to
Biden some
provide these
advice about
businesses
debating
the
this
ability
guy,
to
and
have
her
the
biggest
money to
thing
be
was
able to
don't
reopen
take
with
the bait.
PPE, as well
Right,
as with
right.
the sanitation.
Yeah, no,
you
that's
need.
a- that's
You
a
have
big
to provide
thing.
That
them
to Nancy
plastic-
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
The-
Nancy
the-
Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
crying
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the
Okay.
Senate.
Let-
And he sits on his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
Oh,
What about
good
this question
grief.
of reopenings and the fact
Well, he wants to shut down this country.
Oh.
And I want to keep it open. And we
You
did
ju-
a
he
great thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with
20-year-olds
heart
that have
problems
died.
and diabetes and different problems are
The 7-year-olds,
very, very vulnerable.
the
We learned a lot.
6-month-olds,
Young
like-
children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot.
I hate
But he
that
wants to shut
rhetoric.
it
Like,
down.
it doesn't
More
matter
people
because these
will
are
be hurt.
invaluable lives to
Continuing, If you
him.
look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on
yeah.
November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another
I
subject.
gotta
But
respond.
those,
I
but
wanna
those
move,
states,
gentlemen, I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants to
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing.
Him
and
for
all of the
wearing a
things that you
mask.
have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I
Did he
wear
wear it
masks.
though, or
let me
is
ask-
I
is he
don't
just
have- I
keeping it in
don't
his
wear masks
pocket?
like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could
Trump's
be speaking
attacking Biden for
200
wearing a
feet
mask
away. He
everywhere.
shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice
this.
President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious.
all right, I
at
wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
Said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both
masks.
about one last subject because your different approaches has
masks
even
are
affected the
not
way
good.
that you
Then
have
he changed his
campaigned.
mind. He's-
President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President
Except that one
Biden,
rally.
you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president,
Chris.
and I'll have 25, 35,000 people show up
Right,
at
really
airports. We use airports.
Okay.
Are you not
hangars,
worried
and
about
we
the
have a
disease?
lot of
I'm
people.
just jump out of
Well,
Discord
so
and get
far
back in.
we have had
Yeah,
no problem
something was wrong with the
whatsoever.
YouTube
It's
link
outside.
anyway,
That's
so
a big
I'm
difference
fixing
according
that.
to the
But
experts.
all right.
Okay,
We
I'll
do
be-
them outside.
I'll be
We
quick.
have tremendous crowds,
Okay.
as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Go ahead,
the,
sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've
Come
had
on.
no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000
All right. Do you
people
want
at
to
these rallies.
just
Yes.
quickly finish
You've
up? 'cause I
had
wanna
a
move
couple
on to our
super
next-
Yes, I
spreader
would.
events
He's
and
been
probably going to
totally
have a couple more in a
irresponsible
couple
the way in which
weeks.
He has handled the social distancing
After the
people wearing
infection
masks,
starts.
Basically encourage them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen,
Joe.
can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy
Really, crowd size talk.
is, I think
of
it's fair to
course.
say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people.
China
is too
plague,
much.
I think I
One
have that
person is
one.
Too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening.
On
and
my
we're doing
bingo
record
card.
business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that.
Let's
We're
look
gonna
at the
open up
serious
on
studies
November
about
9th. Why
depression
November 9th?
under
Because it's after
your
the election.
your
They
presidency.
think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce. Look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's his
wrong
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States.
Trump cannot help
leave
himself.
Office, having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir.
Well,
We're going
well
to get
said.
to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools. No, people want their schools
Oh
open.
my goodness,
They
he's
don't
just
want
gonna
to be
go.
shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town, and I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're
how
going to
I
get
found
back.
out? When he took
Gentlemen,
a phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president,
Here it
that
is.
you paid
The tax
$750
question.
a year in federal
How many
income
times does he
tax
say fake
each
news?
of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million one year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you-
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand
return.
all of that.
But let me-
No, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I'm asking
Deja
you a
vu
question.
from 2016.
Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars. And you'll get to see it. And you'll get to
When?
see it. But let
In
me just
July?
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes, is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were
president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
He likes
We've
that
done
line way
things
too
that
much.
you never even thought of doing, including
Gentlemen,
fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about
Broken
the economy.
military,
I'd like
really?
to ask you about your plans going forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
booming.
Blew it.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when, in fact, there was when there was record low unemployment?
When COVID came in.
Before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did.
After you were president for 3 years.
Manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy
a
is
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of my
not bring it.
standard fare.
I'm the guy
He
that brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile
manufacturing.
industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
And
it.
they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch, down
All right, gentlemen,
18%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes
So
millions of
Biden
dollars.
gives
And
some
also,
sort of
while
statistic,
we're at it,
some
why
sort of
is it,
fact,
just out of curiosity,
and then Trump
the
just
mayor
says,
of Moscow's
China
wife
ate your
gave
lunch.
your son $3.5 million.
That's
What
not
did he
true.
do to deserve it?
That
What
is-
did
I'm not
he
sure what
do
I
with
expected.
Burisma
None
to
of that
deserve
is true.
$183,000.
None
You've
of
asked
that
your
is
question,
true.
let him answer.
None of that is true. It's
Oh, really?
been
He didn't
totally
get
But no,
$3.5
hey,
million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please.
totally
ask a question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he didn't get
No, no.
$3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5
President,
million.
it is not true.
Oh,
Here's-
really?
Mr.
Oh.
President,
But,
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's- it
you
is
have
not a
raised an
fact.
issue. Let the
been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report.
$183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
my
job?
son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he
and
did.
Mr.
the only guy
President,
that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
who?
And
The media?
By everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this,
under-
Joe.
under
No,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
even the
you.
people under
He got $3.5 million from
testified-
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a
Some
good
because
job.
some people don't do a
well,
good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
said-
You get
here's the
the, wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's
Trump's
hard
going to
get
give Biden
anybody
an
to
aneurysm.
respond.
That's his strategy.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President,
Joe.
That is simply
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already...
family,
No, let him go.
my family
already
lost
wrote.
a fortune by
Go ahead.
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a...
they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great...
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us
family.
with
It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't collect
American people.
$3.5 million
He
for
doesn't...
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about
you
here.
should
All right,
Take
that's
Not
the, end
about
of the,
here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No, I-
He
I-
stood
good
up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you don't
That
get rid of
is
the
you're-
Russians.
you know what, you're-
absolutely
wait,
not
stop.
You're
true.
on tape doing it.
You're going to
You're on
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen,
Is-
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but it
on
seems
tape.
to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
Got a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interruptions.
That's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
there's
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go
Really?
first.
They asked that?
It's about equity and equality. It's about
Why should we
decency.
trust
It's
Biden over
about the
Trump?
Constitution. And we have never walked away from
can't even.
trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is whose
Now,
minutes, sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
And that's
President
why
you have
Trump
2
doesn't
minutes.
want to
Why
let Biden
should
speak,
Americans
because
trust you over your opponent.
there'll be
to
an
deal with
unrelenting
racism.
crime
flaying
bill,
of
1994,
Trump.
where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle,
Chris Wallace finally broke down and was like,
and we got back Seattle.
Trump,
Minneapolis,
you're going to get 2 minutes, and then Biden's going to get 2 minutes, and then you're not going to interrupt them. And then Trump was like, well, he's interrupting too. And then Chris Wallace was like, not really.
Democrats, in many cases, radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what.
Did he mention the tax, the New York Times report about the taxes? Did he deny it?
To even say it.
He did pretty much. He said he's paid millions and millions in taxes, pretty much.
After the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case,
yeah, obviously,
and just during it, Biden was just like, release your tax returns. Just release your tax returns.
Dang it, I missed the best part.
That there is a
probably, maybe, we don't know yet,
system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable.
I don't know how I feel about the bad apple.
It's called
The bad apple narrative isn't my favorite, but
it's just overused at this point. It's not untrue.
Yeah.
It's just overused.
And we're going
at least he is talking about bringing together an oversight panel, though.
Have more
That's
transparency.
promising.
And when these things happen, these cops aren't happy to see what happened
Yes.
to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened.
He's also not continuously saying they
Most
choke.
don't like it. But
These
we have
cops,
to
these
have a
cops
system
choke
where
sometimes.
People are held accountable.
Like,
and by the
Okay,
way,
I'm sorry,
violence and
but if you
response is
can't
never
control
appropriate.
yourself, like
Never
if you're the
appropriate.
type of person
Peaceful
that's going
protest
to
is.
choke under
Violence is
pressure,
never appropriate.
then the
What is
police
peaceful
force
protest?
is not
When they
the
run through
the
the middle of
profession
the
for you.
town
President Trump,
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores
I-
and
It's just
kill
all there is
people
to it.
all over the place,
That
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest.
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
I did
President
not
Trump,
say
I'd
it.
like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment.
One of the
This
biggest
month,
issues is
your administration,
the idea of defunding the
directed federal
police.
agencies to
It
end
means a lot of things.
racial
One of the things that
sensitivity
it
training
actually means
that
is
addresses white privilege or
readdressing just
critical
general
race theory.
police training.
Why did you decide
Because
to do that, to end
the-
racial sensitivity
how
training?
police are
And
trained is like
do you
one of the
believe
big
that there is
contributors to
systemic
this.
racism in this country, sir?
Exactly. I mean, it's not very much training to begin
A
with.
lot of people were complaining.
It's not
that they were
enough.
asked to
You
do
know,
things that were absolutely insane.
The different systems that police officers are being expected to replace, like social workers,
all over the place,
you know,
and so does everybody
EMTs,
else.
all of
And
these
he would
different,
know, oh, it was totally
you know,
racist.
subsets
sensitivity
of
If you were a certain person, you
different
had
things
no
that these
status
police
in life.
officers
It
are
was sort of a
expected to
reversal.
do.
And if you look at the
You know, you're
people,
talking
would pay
about
people
anywhere
hundreds
from
of
2
thousands of
to
dollars
10 years
to
of
teach
schooling.
very bad
Yeah.
ideas, and
But
frankly,
you're
very
taking a
sick
police
ideas.
officer that's done, what,
And
6-8
really,
weeks
they
of
were
police
teaching
academy
people
training?
to hate our country. And I'm
Yeah,
not
pretty
gonna
much
do
the
that. I'm
only
not gonna allow
public
that to happen.
serving a police
We have
officer is
go
not
back
expected to do
the
is to
core
put out a
values
fire.
of this country.
Exactly.
They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
It's
Nobody's
taking
doing
no
that.
business
He's
tonight.
racist.
You just don't know.
No
I
nonsense.
know a lot more about
You
this
don't
than he
know.
does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but the
Lord.
reason
So
is that
he's
the
acknowledging
Democrats
racism
that run these
exists.
cities
Ridiculous.
don't
But
wanna
then it
talk
doesn't
like you about
exist
law and
now.
order.
Violent
And you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you
it
in
and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You
Everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and order.
lose his
Law
left.
and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the
Good
matter is,
grief.
violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
went down
He-
much more
He
in our-
had.
Just
All right.
tell him, like, ahead of these things, like, hey, maybe don't lie so much
We're
this
now going to
time.
talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic
You know,
run cities.
consider it.
Exactly my question. There has been a
Something.
dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on
I
Democratic
think you got a question
mayors
about
and Democratic governors, but in
debate
fact,
prep
there have
a couple
been
days ago at a
equivalent
presser.
spikes.
I'm pretty sure
in
Rudy
Republican
Giuliani was
led
playing
cities like
Biden
Tulsa and
against
Fort
him,
Worth.
so.
So the question is
Yeah.
this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems.
They just
like
disappear.
You wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised,
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
I mean, Trump's really pretty much saying, okay, mine's bigger.
No law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you.
It's
Name
pretty
one
much
group
means
that
like,
came out and
let's
supported
just
you.
not give
Go
our
ahead.
police, like,
Think. We
you
have
know,
time.
We don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
All right.
about it.
all SWAT gear with
Name one
hand
law
grenades.
enforcement group
just
that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take
Weapons.
back the
There
moderation.
are. Let's not do that.
And I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you'd stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and
Biden
in
to
Oregon
these standards.
to
Like, I mean, he
bring the
just
National
said
Guard
he's not in
and
office.
100 days of
There's
rioting.
only so much he
They
can
can, in
do
fact,
as a
take care of the
candidate
people
and a
stay
former
out of the
vice
way.
president.
Here-
Oh, really?
Here-
Oh, really?
Here's the thing.
I sent
sir,
in
You know what I mean? That's not even a fair
the
standard.
killer of the young man
It's
in the
not.
middle of
It's
the
really
street.
not.
They shot him, and
Right.
for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to
interrupt,
send in the
and
U.S. Marshals.
President
They took
Trump,
care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos
did.
and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that.
I don't-
And so here's the
All right.
But here's the point.
Go
The
ahead,
point
sir.
is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal
I'm
with
surprised
this.
Trump just hasn't claimed
he just
that
pours
he
gasoline
was
in the
on
fire constantly.
And
every
performance-enhancing drugs.
And to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to
And
answer,
we're not,
sir.
it's not done
You
yet.
have
We're not done
repeatedly
yet.
criticized-
That's
I
true.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly,
Wait,
you have
just one
repeated, no,
second.
you've been
And just
talking
for the
about his
record,
statement. I'm
Kellyanne's
asking you-
actual
No,
quote was
I'd love
the
to-
more
I-
chaos
I-
and
I- I-
anarchy and vandalism and
We can do that, but
violence
I'm-
reigns,
the National
the
Guard
better
would
it
be over
is
there,
for the
there'd be no
very
problem.
clear choice
But they
on
don't
who's
want to
best
accept the
on
National
public
Guard.
safety
You
and
have
law and order.
repeatedly criticized the vice president
So,
for not specifically
by her
calling
logic,
out
she was trying to
Antifa
say that it
and
was
other left-wing
better
extremist
for
groups.
Trump.
But are
The
you
more
willing tonight
Yeah.
to
violence and
condemn
anarchy
white
and
supremacists and militia
yada yada
groups
yada, even
and
though
to say
literally
that
they're
they
running off
need
this
to
rhetoric
stand
where
down
they're
and not
using
add to the violence in a number of these
videos and
cities, as we
pictures
saw
of the
in
riots that
Kenosha
are
and as we've seen in
actively
Portland.
happening
Are you
under
willing
the
to
Trump
do that?
administration,
Go
A
ahead.
warning
I
of
would
a
say
Biden
this is going to
administration.
be
It's from the left wing, not
warning
from
of
the
a
right wing.
Biden
What are you
administration.
saying?
So,
I'm willing to do anything. I
I
want to see
mean-
peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
white
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what.
He's not gonna do
Somebody's
it.
gotta do something about
He just
Antifa
bypassed
and the
it.
left, because this is not a
He's
right
like,
wing
I'll
problem.
do it,
This
I'll
is
do
a
it.
left-wing
But what about
problem.
Antifa?
This is a left-wing
Go ahead,
problem.
White
Go ahead, sir.
supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you gotta be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what
Oh, really?
his
It's an idea.
FBI,
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna,
you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're
Everybody-
moving on
great.
to the next
Another
one.
person
We're
that's gonna get fired.
That's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas. that are
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why
Spent
should
70 grand
voters
on the
elect
hair.
you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there is
Oh,
never
the
been
hoax.
an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the
I mean, he
impeachment
has
hoax.
done things.
And you saw what happened
All of them
today with
terrible and
Hillary
make me
Clinton,
feel
where it was
bad,
a
but-
whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A
yes,
fixing
Space
of
Force.
the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like you just don't do that. They left 128
McConnell
openings, and if I were a
left
member of
those
his
judges.
party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left
right? Because he wouldn't confirm any judges
128
in
openings, you can't be a good president.
Yeah,
You can't
lame
be a
duck.
good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Fine, sir.
300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump?
this
You have 2
president-
minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession.
Happy.
With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No,
back
no, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yes,
Okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're
So
poor.
you didn't miss all of it.
Billionaires have gotten much more wealthy
But
by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers, my son was in Iraq.
inspiring in.
There. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you
Hunter
know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
for
wasn't dishonorably
cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune. In
did
Ukraine,
an
in
investigation
China,
on the
in
whole
Moscow,
Hunter Biden
in
thing
several
and
areas
still
of the
came up
world.
with Jack
He made
Diddley.
a fortune.
My son.
Just for the record.
My son,
Yeah, it's-
like a lot of people.
Literally
Like a lot of
his
people you know at
own
home
people.
Had a drug problem.
I wonder if
He's
they'll come up
overtaken.
with
He's-
Jack
he's
Diddley, as you
fixed
say,
it.
with
He's
Eric
worked on
Trump
it,
here.
and I'm proud of him.
But why was
I'm
he
proud of
Right?
my son.
tens of millions
All
of
right.
But he
dollars?
wasn't
That's
given
gonna be
tens of
interesting.
millions of dollars. That is totally,
President Trump,
totally
President Trump,
discredited.
we've already been through.
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know,
Yeah,
as the
that
moderator,
Hunter
sir, I'm gonna
Biden-
make
I know,
a
but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay,
from
great.
the
Let's talk
mayor
about-
of Moscow,
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think
true.
it's a terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have
Oh, if he
displaced
says forest
hundreds
management.
of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science.
gonna start
no.
talking about
Over your
sweeping
4
the
years,
forest.
You have pulled
It's
the
coming.
U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number
Or he's just
going to
blame it on
Obama
California
environmental
and
records.
the
What
Democratic
do you
cities.
believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want
Oh.
beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers,
2016
right now,
vibes.
we are doing phenomenally.
Crystal clean.
But I haven't destroyed our
beautiful clean
businesses.
coal.
Our businesses aren't put out of
You know,
commission.
I'm bummed he
If
gave
you
up
look
bigly.
at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint, and people are actually.
He got
think he got
self-conscious.
made-
about
He
what's
got
going on.
self-conscious
Yeah.
about
Because our
it.
businesses
He got
are
made
doing
fun
well.
of
As
too
far as the
much
fires
for
are
it.
concerned, you need forest management in addition to
Oh.
everything else. The forest floors are loaded
There it
up with
is.
dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder.
explosive
and
dead
leaves and everything
trees.
else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have
He didn't even
immaculate
acknowledge
air,
the question.
immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting
believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if that were if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their
Forest
forests.
cities.
I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point...
Can I get a fact checked on the flammability of different trees? I'm sure there's some variation, but...
Please pull that up.
That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old.
You know how easy it would be.
The car would be safer. It would be much cheaper.
Slowly, not even slowly, just go into electric or hybrid, like full hybrid market, full electric market.
So, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little
computers,
bit of
computers
gasoline.
everywhere.
And I'm okay with electric cars too.
The robots
I'm
are going to
all for
take us
electric
over.
cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars.
Like that
What
Disney
they've done
movie
in
Smart
California
House.
is
Did you
just
ever watch that
crazy.
when you were a kid?
Vice President
think,
Biden,
yes,
I'd
I
like
did.
you to respond to
Where the,
President's
like,
climate
the maid or
change
the
record.
nanny
I
or-
also
Yeah.
asked you about
Whatever
a
it was
concern. You
in the
proposed
house
$2
or
trillion
like built into
in
the house,
green
and then it like
jobs.
took
You
over.
talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the